today's masterclass with Stephanie Hesler, How Your Thinking Drives Your Results. Stephanie is a high-performance coach. She helps high-achieving leaders who want to rapidly advance their careers and create a vision others want to follow, but are tired of feeling stuck. Therefore, Stephanie guides her clients through a transformational coaching journey called the Bliss Accelerator to turn their goals and dreams into reality. Previously, she worked in the investment business, including on Wall Street for 16 years. She earned her MBA at the Wharton School and her BA at Wesley College. All right, Stephanie, if you want to go ahead.
Thank you so much, Avery. Thank you so much. And I'm so appreciative to you and to Tien for hosting me, and also for the entire CONNECTpreneur community, of which I'm proud to say I'm a part of. And just what a dynamic, wonderful, high positivity community it is, and what a joy it is to be with all of you here today. So I'm actually going to share my screen now, and I have a presentation that I'd like to share with all of you. All right. And just out of curiosity, because I was a speaker about a year ago in a 3-part masterclass about self-image, and I would be really curious to know how many of you who are here participated last year. And if you participated last year, if you could just type a 1 into the chat if you participated, and a 2 if you did not participate. It helps me to sort of get a feel for how familiar you might be with some of my background. Okay, so it looks like we've got a lot of new crowd, new friends. Wonderful. Okay, wonderful. So as I mentioned, I'm just thrilled to be here again with the CONNECTpreneur community. And I would like to start with a quote. Any idea that is held in the mind, that is emphasized, that is either feared or revered, will begin at once to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate form available. So Andrew Carnegie, businessman and philanthropist, said that. And basically what he's saying is that your thinking creates your reality. Your thinking drives your results. And if you knew, so take this to yourself, reflect this to yourself. If you knew and believed that your thoughts create your reality, would you ever allow any limited, negative, or fearful thinking into your mind? And that's a question I really want you to internalize for yourself. You know, every day you have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And your thinking today, for most people, is much the same as it was last week, as it was last month, as it was a year ago, maybe even 3 years ago. So I want to invite you, really bring your focused attention today. Think, really think. Thinking is a higher faculty. So I want you to reflect this information back to yourself. Take notes. And I'm actually going to be referring, you'll see throughout the talk today, there's a theme. I'm going to be referring to this book, The 7-Day Mental Diet, which is just an amazing book. Tien is a fan of it too. In fact, he and I have done things together around the book. And Avery, if I could just ask you to drop into the chat the Amazon link. I figure some of you are going to be asking, where do I get that book? It's out of print, but you can get used copies on Amazon. And it's a really, really short book. It's actually like a long essay. So the key objectives of this masterclass, as Avery said, we have 2 parts to the masterclass today, and then again in a week, where we'll be meeting here online. But my objectives for all of you is to, number 1, understand the power of your thinking and your mind. And number 2 is for you to be motivated to do your own really vigilant cleansing around any limited and negative thinking that you might have. And I have so much to share with you over these next 2 weeks. We are barely going to be able to scratch the surface of everything that I can share with you. So I want to invite you to really, really pay close attention. And there will be handouts as well. And it's going to be important for you to also to look closely and follow the assignments in the handout. So I'll bring those to your attention at the appropriate time. So for today we are part 1. And your key takeaways, the key takeaways for each of you, in order to really, really be able to use the concept, the idea that your thinking creates your results, it's going to be absolutely essential for each one of you to have clarity about what are the results that you want. So number 1, getting clarity around the results that you want. Number 2, to start to notice, to start to pay attention to your habitual thinking patterns. And then number 3 is to start to train your thinking in service of the results that you want. So we'll be covering all of that today, because here's the thing. If you aren't focusing on what you want, unconsciously, you might be focusing on what you don't want, and your thinking drives your results. So it's really essential that you learn to focus on what it is that you want. We're going to be cleansing your mind, so to speak, of those limited patterns that are holding you back. I'm going to be sharing with you today 3 exercises so you can follow along with me on the screen. And Avery, if I could ask you to share the handout, the 1-pager for today for part 1, that way all of you have it, and I encourage you to download it because you'll need that for the next week. So we have 2 parts to this masterclass. So everything you're going to be learning with me today in part 1, including the exercise, I want you to keep working on it for the next 7 days. Doesn't take tons of time, but it's really important because you want to start to notice those habitual patterns. And then next week, we'll focus on the next 7 days. So for those of you who are really serious about learning to control your thinking in order to have much more control over your own destiny, I encourage you to commit to this almost like a 2-week process. And I'm going to be supporting you on this journey. And, just like Emmett Fox in the book, The 7-Day Mental Diet, he talks about, what you feed your mind is essential, just like what the food that you feed your body is essential for your health. So I'd like to tell you a little bit more about myself. Avery, thank you so much for the background, but just to all of you to help you understand where I'm coming from in terms of sort of the thought and results world, let me start with going back a little bit, which is that I was so blessed, the family that I grew up in. My father was an executive for an international company, and I grew up in 6 different countries, mostly in Switzerland. And my parents had a lot of shared dreams. And one of their dreams, and I have 3 siblings, so there are 4 of us total. One of my parents' dreams for the 4 of us kids, I guess you could say, was that we would all come to the best colleges in the United States. My parents really believed that would ensure our success. So I came to the States for college, I graduated, and then I went to work on Wall Street. This was in the 1980s. Then I got my MBA at Wharton, went back to Wall Street. And, when I worked on Wall Street, I worked on high-level strategic teams with CEOs and CFOs on billions of dollars of financial transactions and investments. And by the time I was in my 30s, by most definitions, so to speak, I would have been considered very successful. I was married. We had a beautiful family. We lived in a beautiful home. I was a vice president. We had a nice bank account, took wonderful vacations. But the truth is that inside of myself, I often didn't feel successful. And in 1999, my then husband and I got divorced. And what happened after that, I never would have anticipated. We ended up in the family court system for about another 6 years. And our oldest son living with their father in Cleveland, and our younger son living with me in the Boston area. And, being a parent, having a family was something that I had always held in such high value, was that I couldn't believe that this was my life. And I remember thinking, but I went to the best schools in the world. This wasn't supposed to happen to me. And to be really honest, I got very depressed and I lost a lot of faith in life. And then I got to a point where I started to realize that maybe I needed to stop blaming my ex-husband, blaming the attorneys, blaming the family court system, and have a good look at myself. And that was around 2005. And I started studying personal growth and world religions and spirituality to help me understand myself. How had I contributed to all of this happening? And then fast forward to 2009, I left the investment business and I started a business. And it was a lot harder than I ever anticipated. So I hired a mentor. And that's what happened then, was that I went into understanding personal growth and thinking even deeper. This person taught me to use my mind and thoughts in a whole new way that was deeper than anything I had understood before. And, I had what you might call a low-grade depression that I had had for years and years. And so I was on an antidepressant, and I had been for quite some time. And I remember that my doctor had said to me, Stephanie, you're just going to have to deal with this. You're going to have this for the rest of your life. But as I got deeper into learning about the power of my mind and the power of my thinking, I realized that my thoughts were making me depressed. And slowly I was able to move away from that depression by virtue of training myself. And since then, I am more focused, more disciplined, more dedicated, and more happy and in charge of my life than ever before. And I'm sharing that story with you because it is all a result of changing my thinking and realizing just how powerful my thinking is. And since I've been a coach, I have seen some amazing transformations when people change their habitual limited thinking. So Emmett Fox said, the most important of all factors in your life is the mental diet on which you live. So Emmett Fox, who wrote the 7-Day Mental Diet, was actually a spiritual teacher in the 1900s. And he uses that food analogy because we all know that the food that you feed your body impacts your health. And similarly, the food that you furnish your mind, absolutely impacts the character of your life. So what I'd like to do now, and Avery, if you could just help me here, we're going to run just a 1-question poll. And that question is, yes, do you believe that your habitual thinking creates your reality? So we'd love your feedback. This is anonymous, just to see where you stand on this. Do you believe that your habitual thinking impacts your results? Agree? Don't agree, or not sure? We'd just love to see where all of you come out on this. I know it takes a few minutes, right, to get the poll results back. And be sure, all of you on, be sure to participate. It's anonymous. It'll just give us a sense of where do you all come out on this? Do you believe that your habitual thinking creates your reality? How's it looking with the poll results?
It looks like most agree.
Oh, that is wonderful. Oh, I'm so glad. That means we have an audience that is really, really tuned in. Wonderful. Avery, can you break that out for us? Is that possible? If not, no problem.
Yeah, so out of 47 that responded, we had 42 agree.
Oh,
Zero did not agree.
Okay.
And we had 5 say that they are not sure.
Okay. Well, that is really terrific that we have such an open-minded 90%. Wow, what an amazing group. This is a very high consciousness group. So that makes me really happy to hear that. So let's use another graphic to help us understand this, because the fact is that you have consciousness. You have consciousness that's flowing through you every day. You can think of it in terms of your awareness. And your consciousness is a reflection of your background, your life experiences. But the truth is that consciousness itself, it's kind of mysterious if we're all honest about it, right? But consciousness itself, as far as I know and learn, is unlimited. So each one of us has sort of our own sliver of consciousness. But throughout your day, thoughts are bubbling up into your mind, and they're often bubbling up unconsciously. You might not even be aware of them. But the truth is that you actually have 100% control over your thinking. And that's because at the level of your conscious mind, you can accept or reject information. Now, this doesn't mean that you actually do that consciously, right? Because like I said, most of our thoughts sort of bubble up unconsciously. But the truth is that whatever you believe, whatever your predominant thinking is going to be true for you. It absolutely colors your reality. It impacts your results. Most people don't exercise that faculty of being able to control your thinking, but you can control your thinking. You've got to train yourself to do so. And this is what I want to expose you to over these next 2 weeks. Henry Ford said, life can be heaven or hell. You decide. And just to give you a little illustration of this, when the COVID lockdown happened in 2020, which, it was about 3 years ago, I guess, right, in March of 2020, I remember at the time thinking, oh boy, I might be out of business, because I had been building my business mostly through in-person events. But I made up my mind. I decided that I was going to have an excellent attitude, regardless of the COVID situation. And I did. I really locked into that. And consequently, the period since COVID for me has been absolutely the most productive period in my business, because I made that decision to really monitor carefully, to be very vigilant around my thinking during that difficult time in the economy that absolutely altered favorably my reality. So let's direct this back to you. What are you thinking? Thinking is activity. Your mind is the activity of the brain, and thinking itself is energy, and it is potent energy. How you experience your life, your results are a direct reflection of your thinking, your thoughts that you're entertaining currently, and the thoughts that you have entertained in the past. And those past thoughts, current and past, form, when we keep at them, they form our beliefs. And you are whatever it is that you believe. Beliefs are subconscious. So let's take this a little bit deeper. What are you thinking? Are you thinking what you want, or are you thinking what you don't want? Are you thinking problems, or are you thinking solutions? What is the landscape of your mind? Is it calm? Is it serene? Or is it confusion? Because whatever you are feeding your mind is how you are experiencing your life. And remember, you do have control over your thinking. So the first exercise, and this is in the handout that Avery has shared in the chat, and what I want to recommend is that you reflect this back to yourself every day. What are those 3 dominant thoughts that are coming up for you? And often they can come up over and over, almost like a little bird on your shoulder. And for every day next week, maybe pick a time at the end of the day at 5 p.m., at 8 p.m., and every day next week, take a daily self-inventory. The handout that I have for you, you can print out 7 copies of it. You want to just do that every single day next week. What are your dominant thoughts? Are they negative? Are they limited? And next week, I'm going to give you share with you a kind of a list of what all those sort of negative thoughts are, but they tend to be like fear or revenge, worry, cynicism, anger, resentment, right? Basically, a way to tune into those negative thoughts is that it feels heavy. You don't feel good when you have negative thinking going on. Are they positive? Are your thoughts positive? What I found in my experience, because I have hundreds of conversations every year, is that most people, including high achieving individuals, have a lot of lack and limitation going on in their thinking. But positive thoughts are going to generate those positive feelings. So think of gratitude or love, appreciation, faith, which is the opposite of fear. And, the way to tune into positive thinking is that it's going to leave you feeling lighter, happier, more cheerful. And the reason this is so important was because, like I was saying, everything is energy. Positive thinking is high vibration. Negative thinking is low vibration. Let's go back here to Emmett Fox. He said, thought is the real causative force in life, and there is no other. You cannot have one kind of mind and another kind of environment. So going back to our graphic of your thinking drives your reality, it impacts your results. If you want more prosperity in your life, if you want more money, you cannot be thinking thoughts of lack and limitation for most of your day. If you want more joy and happiness and lightness in your life, you just can't be bemoaning what a struggle life is. If you want to grow your team, say, for example, you can't be, complaining about how hard it is to find good people, because what you are thinking colors how you feel. It impacts your reality. Now, there are 2 things that are really important for you to know. Number 1, as you can see here in the lower left hand, it's where you are. And number 2 is where you're going. So in a few minutes, we're going to be talking about goals and where you're going. And, as you can see here, it looks so easy, right? Where you are, where you're going, straight up. Why is it so hard, right? Why is it so hard for most people to get to where you want to go? And what I want you to think about for a moment is where you are. And by where you are, I don't mean where you are geographically. So I know CONNECTpreneur is Washington, D.C. based, and many of you may be in that area geographically. I happen to be outside of Boston, in the Boston area. So I'm not saying where you are geographically. What I'm saying is where you are mentally, because it's where you are mentally that determines how you show up, the color of your relationships, how much money you earn, the kinds of decisions that you make. And the truth is that for most people are stuck. Most people are stuck in low frequency thinking. Most people are stuck in lack and limitation thinking. So just to give you a concrete example of the power of your thinking and frequency, you heard me mention a little bit earlier that I'm one of four kids growing up. And my older sister lives in France. My youngest brother lives in Switzerland. And my middle brother and I both live here in the Boston area. And we have a WhatsApp chat. I know a lot of people use WhatsApp. I think it's a really great tool. And we have a WhatsApp chat. And actually, just this morning, I've been seeing the messages come in, and they come in instantly from Switzerland, from France. We can communicate with one another, basically all over the world. And what connects us is our phone numbers. Those are codes. It's a frequency that connects us. So because it's my siblings and myself, it's four of us. We're connected through those frequencies. It doesn't all of a sudden somebody else show up in our chat, right? It's always the four of us. Similarly, think about our Zoom call. Avery sent us a code, right? It was that Zoom code. If you got the number off by one number, you wouldn't end up on this call because we're connected by a frequency. It's a very precise frequency that puts us here all on the same call. And the same with your thinking. We are part of this pulsating, alive universe. And like I said a few minutes ago, your thinking is potent energy. You are a mass of energy, and you are constantly emitting an energetic frequency, and your thinking plays an important part in that you're putting out into the energy field. So if you want to achieve the results that you want, then you've got to move yourself. You've got to elevate yourself into higher octane thinking. Because down here, you're in low frequency thinking, lack and limitation. You've got to train yourself to be very vigilant with your thinking and elevate yourself to that level of what it is that you want to achieve. You must train yourself to choose the subject of your thinking, because the subject of your thinking, your predominant thinking, impacts how you feel. It impacts your mood. It's part of that energetic signature that you're putting out into the energy field. And if you are not putting out the highest frequency that you can, it's costing you. It is costing you your results. A few years ago, one of my clients who started working with me had been passed over for a promotion. And when I started talking with her, it was easy for her to, blame her leadership at her company for not recognizing her and validating her and for missing that promotion. But as we started working more closely together and really looking at her thinking, she realized that she was in low frequency thinking. She needed to elevate her thinking. And the last time I heard from her, she not only had a promotion at her company, but she has moved on and had another promotion in the industry. And what she said to me was, Stephanie, it was all a result of working with you, and most specifically, changing my mindset. And I'm not telling you that to impress you. I'm telling you that to impress on you, that it starts with your thinking. She was willing to dedicate herself to changing her habitual patterns, and you can too. If you make that commitment to yourself, you absolutely will experience life differently, and you will see your results change. It doesn't happen right away. I do want to put that caveat in, but you must be disciplined and attentive and dedicated, and it absolutely will happen. So how do you do that? How do you do that exactly? How do you change your thinking? So number one, this is why I want for all of you to make that commitment to stay with me for these 14 days, so to speak. We'll meet again in a week, and I'm here to support you in this journey. Avery has shared with you the handout for next week, which I want you to work on every single day. Just put a little time into it every single day. But then there's another thing that's really important that I want to share with you, which is for you to train your thinking in new ways. You've got to get really clear about what it is that you want. What do you really, really want? What's your vision? What's your dream? Not just any old goal, but something that's going to stretch you, that comes from deep inside of you, that you can do it. Maybe you've wanted it for a long time, but you've forgotten about it, or you've sort of given up on it. But it has to come from inside of you, and it has to be something that you really, really want. Because to achieve what it is that you want, you've got to be inspired. The truth is, most people are settling. And if you are settling, let this be a wake-up call to ignite in yourself what it is that you really, really want. So exercise number 2, and this is on your handout as well, is to reflect this back to yourself. And let's keep it simple for now. Think about what a goal that's going to move you in the direction that you want, one personal goal and one professional goal in the next 12 months. So imagine that a year has gone by. What is it that you want to be able to say that you've achieved? And I just came up with a hypothetical example because this is an investor and entrepreneur community. So imagine that in the next year, you want to raise $1 million for your startup business. Okay. So let's say that is your professional goal, and it should be something that stretches you, that you haven't yet achieved, that you really want, that's going to move you in the direction of your vision. And let's say your personal goal is that you want in the summer of 2024, say, to take your family to the Amalfi Coast in Italy. So I'm just giving you some hypothetical examples. So be sure that you are writing those out. Be sure that you're really clear about your goal. And then every day on that worksheet that I give you, write that goal out again, because that goal absolutely must become like a North Star for you. And you must write it in the present tense and write it out daily. The reason it's so important to do it in the present tense and to do it daily is because your subconscious mind can't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined. In fact, great athletes know this, right? Great athletes visualize, they imagine their success even before it's happening. That's working with the power of your mind. So your goals become like a North Star for you. It's going to give you direction in terms of training yourself to think in a way that supports you achieving what it is that you want. You know, the British writer Thomas Carlyle said, "A man without a purpose is like a ship without a rudder." So imagine a ship without a rudder. You know, it could be going up and down thousands of miles of coastline, could end up at any old port. The wind comes along, blows it this way, blows it that way. And that's how a person is when they don't have goals. So having very clear direction for your life is absolutely essential. And that will support you in the journey of training your mind to achieve the results that you want. So what this is about is then aligning your thinking with the goals that you're expressing. So going back to the example of raising $1 million of capital, you know, train yourself. You must start training yourself to think like the man or woman who is achieving what it is that you want. Move yourself into that higher octane thinking. Remember, we talked about get out of the low frequency thinking, get out of the lack and limitation thinking. And it is possible. This is going to be a journey. You know, you won't wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden the $1 million will be there. That rarely happens. It is a journey, and it is a journey of who you become during the process of learning to elevate your thinking and achieving your goals. So the next exercise, the last exercise for today, is that over the next week, I want you to be very conscious of interrupting your limited and negative thinking and reframing it. And remember, reframing it in alignment with who you are as the man or woman who's achieving your goals. So I have some examples here. So for example, let's say that this used to be my pattern. I had this constant, like this little bird on my shoulder. My life is such a struggle. My life is such a mess. I replayed that, you know, when I shared with all of you the difficult period that I went through. That was playing on autopilot in the background, in my mind. Okay. That was my habitual thinking. So we want to reframe it. So something to, I'm open to making improvements. I don't have enough being a negative thought. I'm getting better and better. I hate my job. I am open to new opportunities. I am statements are really powerful to interrupt your habitual lack and limitation thinking and move you into greater and greater alignment with your goals. You know, I also want to emphasize, you want to be careful that you don't make a positive statement that is so extreme that your subconscious mind doesn't accept it. So for example, if you went from my life is such a struggle to I am a billionaire, right? That might be a little bit of a stretch for your subconscious mind. So one way to do it is be a little gradual about it, right? We want to train our minds to open up. So I'm going to wrap up now and just summarize again the key takeaways for today. And I want this to be impactful for you, which is why you have access to the worksheet. And for you, each of you then, for every day next week, work a little bit on your worksheet. Number one, to be sure you're getting that clarity around the results that you want. What are your goals? To start to notice your habitual thinking patterns, particularly those that are negative and limited. And then also to begin that process of training of reframing your thinking so that you're actually supporting yourself with your thinking, supporting the results that you want, supporting yourself in going after your goals, because your thoughts absolutely impact your results. So today we're here at part 1. And I want to emphasize again, do the worksheet every day. Doesn't take a lot of time, but it's going to be really good for the self-reflection and building awareness around your habitual patterns and making sure you're clear about your goals. And then next week, please come back next week. We'll jump into part 2, and I will have a new worksheet for you as well. The truth is that anyone who accomplishes anything of significance starts from the inside out. And, if you think about some of our great leaders in history, whether it's, Nelson Mandela or Gandhi, or even in our current world, like Oprah Winfrey, right? They all know this. Great leaders know this, that your success happens from the inside out. So please do connect with me on social media. I know, Avery, we're going to be opening up now for Q&A in a minute. But please do connect with me on social media. I'm active on most of the social media, especially LinkedIn. And if any of you have further questions, you have my email address here as well. So Avery, I'm happy to open up now for questions, and I'll stop sharing the screen. Is that okay?
That sounds great. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Stephanie. All right. If anyone has a question for Stephanie, if you can go ahead and put it in chat. You may also DM me, or if you want to verbally ask the question, just go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom. I do have a few questions that came in. So let's start with the first one.
Sure.
Do you have any methods to self-soothe negative thoughts that stem from things that are out of your control?
So the question is, do I have any ways to self-soothe when negative things that are out of my control come along?
Yes.
That is a really great question, because the fact of the matter is that here on Earth, we live with other people, and a lot of times other people are doing things that we don't want to do, or that we don't like. So, and especially, in family relationships, we can get really, really easily triggered, right? And that can it can take us into those patterns of lack and limitation, or irritation, or frustration. So I do have a couple of different things that you can do. Number one is, we all have breathing capacity. We all have that capability. In fact, breath is life, right? We are all able to breathe. And breath is your own built-in sort of tranquilizer. So I find that if I'm in a situation where I'm triggered or getting triggered, what I do is I've trained myself to just tap into taking a deep breath, deep breath, preferably deep into your diaphragm, because that's going to help me to really, really calm down. So that's number one. The second thing is to build a meditation practice, because a meditation practice is what's going to help you to learn to observe your habitual patterns, but also to move into calmness, to move into more and more calmness, so that when there is stuff that's negative, you already have that experience of staying calm, of being calm. So I really, really emphasize meditation practice as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I did also get a question about the masterclass for next week. The link is in the chat. So you can go ahead and click on that link for anyone that wants to register for next week's masterclass. All right. Next question. How quickly do most people see results with your approach?
So What I would say, because I've been coaching now, I've been a coach now for 9 years, is that the people who really commit to the journey, and my coaching journey is 6 months or 12 months generally. So I want to emphasize that the deeper transformation typically doesn't happen right away. But I will tell you that I start to see, and I have enough, because I've worked with hundreds of people over the years, I have enough experience now to be able to say with a high level of confidence that within the first month, people are noticing their habitual patterns and starting to interrupt them. But the number one thing that makes the difference is that you must be committed. You must be committed to the dedication and discipline and attention that this takes. That's going to make all the difference, but you can see a difference in the first month. In fact, for all of you, if you're committed to the 2 weeks of the one pagers, the sheets that I'm going to be sharing with you, you will start to notice shifts in yourself. Great question.
Thank you, Stephanie. Kevin, I saw that you had your hand up. If you still have a question, you can go ahead. Kevin, are you there? All right, I think that Kevin may not be here right now.
Sorry, I'm here.
Oh,
I am
okay,
here.
there we go.
I was in mute and anyway, different story over here. So I did have a question. Initially was trying to get the email and contact information. Someone asked for it in chat, so it's there right now. So that's why I took my hand down.
Okay. Yeah, Stephanie, if you would like to put your email and your LinkedIn in chat, just so that people could.
Yeah, let me also ask a little bit of a different question. So once we have that contact information, Stephanie, how would you like us to reach out to you? Can we do a direct connect? What do we mention that would nudge you and to say, yes, okay, there's some connection? I get hundreds of requests to connect with me, and I'm sure you get thousands of them, and I'm sure you don't connect to all of those folks, correct?
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, the best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn, and then send me a DM on LinkedIn. And I promise you that I will get back to you.
Be careful. Let me ask you a question. You probably know the answer, and if you don't know, I'll give it to you. What's the maximum number of LinkedIn connections you can have?
Oh, I don't think there is a maximum
30,
number.
yeah, it's 30,000.
That is correct. It's 30,000.
Okay.
Yeah, the minute you hit 30,000, if you start to get requests, you will not be able to connect to them. And you know what their answer was when I asked them why they did that? They say it's limited to 30,000, so you have to start kicking people off. And I'll give you my reasoning for this. My reasoning is because after Microsoft bought LinkedIn, they wanted to data mine LinkedIn, and they want to do a lot more with LinkedIn. And paying just $60 for a year, it's like a joke.
Interesting.
All right. So next question we have is it true that one negative thought has more of a bearing than multiple positive thoughts? If so, how do you surpass this?
So I have, I have heard that. Just a disclaimer, I teach this more as a learning system. There are some great teachers out there who teach more the science of this. So I have heard that also, that that positivity outweighs negativity. So this is something that's really important for you to keep in mind. And we'll be talking about this next week as we talk more about, really cleansing yourself and the 7-day mental diet, cleansing yourself of negative thinking, is that, negative stuff is going to come up. It just is. You may never fully get rid of that. Okay. You can just accept that. But what's important is not to dwell on it, not to entertain it. That's what's essential. And so when that negativity comes up, to learn to catch it. And one of the ways that you can learn to catch it is to tune in with how you're feeling. If you're feeling heaviness, that probably means negativity. If you're feeling lightness, that's positive. Tien, I noticed you had a question. And because you're such an expert at some of this yourself, maybe you could help address that.
Expert on it, as you know. Stephanie's my coach, you guys. But no, I was curious what your thoughts were on Stoicism, which is something I've been studying the last several years. And the three basic tenets, if you want to boil it down, which you really can't boil it down, but if you were going to, be things like objective judgment, unselfish action, and willful acceptance of all things external. How does that apply to what you're doing? And how do we, if that's a good thing, how do we make that a reality in our own lives?
Yeah. So I have to say, I'm less personally, I know Stoicism through you, but I haven't studied it quite the way that you have. So when you speak of objective judgment, unselfish action, I think makes sense, but willful acceptance. Can you talk a little bit about what those mean?
Well, like Shakespeare used to say, a thing is neither good nor bad, it just is. And so it's how you approach a situation, your attitude towards the judgment that you bring towards a situation or a person or whatever, is just yours. And if you're truly objective, then you'll just accept it. If it's pouring rain out or if there's a hurricane or whatever it is it good or is it bad? Who knows? It's probably good for some and bad for others, but the Stoic would probably say it just is and accept it and move on. They might even say, Epictetus, I think, would say something like the obstacle is a way, like this, the thing that impedes progress is the path towards progress. And I don't want to I'm not a philosopher. I did study philosophy, but I'm not a philosopher. But I mean, these are sort of the things that are interesting to me because it's all about shifting mindsets.
Yeah.
If you look at the successful people that we've studied, all of us have studied, it's their ability to look at things in a different way that causes them to break through and to be really unique about how the way they look at things is so different than the mainstream that that's why they can have an advantage over their competition or the sort of conventional wisdom,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think willful acceptance is great for peace of mind. If you just accept things as they are, don't get too attached to the outcome, that's a great, and being a New York Giants fan and a Mets fan, you sort of learn the hard way to accept, but that's just a bad analogy, but that's sort of, that helps you stay steady, I think, a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. And I know I've learned sort of about Stoicism indirectly through you because I haven't studied it sort of the way you have. But yes, you're right. Everything has good and bad in it. But again, we can choose. You have 100% control over your thinking as long as you're aware that you have that power to exercise it, right? You have that power at the level of your conscious mind. And something that I trained myself to do was even when things happen that maybe were not what I wanted to happen, I have a statement that I say, which is all is well. Everything is happening for my highest good. That there's going to be good and bad because Earth is a planet of polarity, right? We don't just have good here, but then how we react is within our control. And you're right, Tien, if we are really honest with ourselves, our challenges is what pushes us to grow the most. And I used to, back in the days when life was such a struggle for me, when challenges would come along, I would kind of go into a victim mode. Now I'm like, bring it on. life is trying to make me even stronger yet, right? So it's all been a flipping and reframing my thinking. Thank you so much for bringing that question up.
Thank you, Tien and Stephanie. Just a few more questions here. Why can it be a challenge to maintain positivity?
The reason is, okay, and again, there's probably a lot of research and neuroscience that supports us from a scientific perspective. But what I know from my years of study and working with clients and just observation of myself is the reason it can be so hard is because we all have subconscious mental programming. Some of it we inherit genetically. Most of it we picked up in our early childhood, and then we've picked it up in the decades of our lives. And what happens is that once it becomes part of your subconscious mental programming, it becomes part of your personality. It becomes part of who you are. And that's why I was saying that this work of changing your thinking is really hard work, because it's programmed into you. 95% of your day, most of you are running on autopilot because your subconscious mind controls over 95% of your behavior. So it's hard because it's a mental program that has been created over years and years. And now you gotta unlearn it, create a new program.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, next question is, I've been working on very similar concepts from a book I'm reading. However, I feel that my thinking has become a bit more volatile, perhaps from pushing limits that are unfamiliar and certainly uncomfortable. Any ways to get through these initial phases?
That's a really, really great question. Because the question is that, I'm sorry, I don't have your name, but this individual is conscious of being aware of changing, but it sounds like you're coming up with some volatility in this phase of transformation. And what happens is that your mental programming is so deep, it is so entrenched, and it wants to keep you stuck. It wants to keep you safe, and it wants to keep you in a safe comfort zone. So anytime you go towards something that is going to be a big change in your life, including deciding that you want to change your thinking, the mental programming is going to get really threatened, and it's going to fight for its life. And so what you're feeling is that internal conflict, where it's almost like part of you has a foot on the gas, and then that mental programming has a foot on the brake. And that's happening at the same time. And it can leave you in the beginning feeling very conflicted, but stay with it. Stay with it. That will not last forever. As long as you stay with this, you will break through that pattern. Great question.
Thank you. And this question is, do you recommend the book Atomic Habits if you've read it?
Mm-hmm. I have not read it, but I do know, I think, is it Thomas Cleary, the
James
writer?
Clear.
James Cleary. Yeah, James Cleary. I do recommend the book. I've listened to podcasts with James Cleary. I have friends. Tien, have you read that book?
I haven't read the book, but I've seen his videos and I saw him speak in person a couple years ago before the pandemic. Yeah, I mean, I think you can kind of, it's a good, he's got good tips in there, things like habit stacking and just different tricks and hacks that you could potentially use. The whole concept is like incremental improvement on a daily basis will compound tremendously, which is true, mathematically true, hard to do, but but it's worth a read for sure.
Yes, I've heard good things about it too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have two questions for you. This is Kevin again, and I've hopefully got my hand raised, and so I'll lower my hand. So the first question is, very interested in what you've been doing. It's great to find out that you're working with Tien. So how do you get to that point, which is love what you've done, love what I see, participate in your next session, the second session. Can you give me, or maybe for the group, this overarching how you work with people if you're going to end up being a coach with them? Is it possible to have that, or is that a separate offline conversation?
Oh, so you're asking, how do I work with individuals?
I'm saying, yeah, this is great. I love today's session. I expect nothing worse on the right? I expect the same thing. And it sounds like Tian is already working with you on this. So I'm very interested always have been interested in finding top-notch coaches, right? Because the real coach is a mentor. And those words are synonymous for me.
Wonderful. Yeah. So just in a nutshell, what I do is help high achieving leaders who want to rapidly advance their careers and be visionary, impactful leaders to break through limiting beliefs. And I guide them through a coaching program. And like I said, what I recommend is 6 months or 12 months, because that mental programming runs deep. And if you or anyone else is interested in learning more about my coaching, what I recommend is email me or connect with me on LinkedIn through a DM. And I'm happy to set up a time to talk about you, what you need, and whether it might be a fit for you.
Okay, so I've done both. So you'll
Oh, fantastic. Perfect.
Okay,
so I will get back to you. I will definitely get back to you. And anyone else who reaches out to me. Thank you.
One last question, if I'm allowed to, if I don't want to exceed my time or dominate the conversation. We all know and have heard about the 7, habits of highly successful people. Have you ever done any kind of correlation between how you coach and the 7 habits?
Yes, because I'm a big fan of Stephen Covey, and I think he's, just a brilliant individual. So I do have his book, and I sometimes use it. I reference it in my coaching. And actually, most recently, one thing that I've really focused on with Stephen Covey is where he says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And particularly for everyone on this call, communication is absolutely essential. How you communicate, not only how you show up non-verbally, but also, writing, speaking, the words that you speak, right? It's all tying in with what we're saying. Your thinking drives your results. So being really vigilant, how you show up communicating with others. But one thing in particular that I really, really thank Stephen Covey for is about empathic listening, right? And listening, if you think about it, listening is a very underrated skill. We must all strive to be better listeners. Thank you, Kevin. Really great questions. I hope that addresses them for you.
You absolutely did. That was phenomenal. By the way, the joke about speaking and listening is you have 2 ears and you have 1 mouth. So you should be listening twice as much you talk.
That's right.
A good one. All right. And we have one final question for today. And that is, if you, Stephanie, could expand on the topic of our subconscious that controls our everyday decisions.
Yep. Yeah. So, and actually, I will talk more about this next week, and I will share a graphic visual so that you can all understand this better. So you have, think of your mind as your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is your thinking mind. It's your educated mind. It's the part of your mind that gathers information. It's the part of your mind that is connected to the outside world through your sensory factors. So you're all, tuned into me today through your conscious mind. Your subconscious mind is where you have what we call your mental programming, your paradigms. That's multitudes of habits, of fixed ideas, of beliefs. And when you think of your whole mind, your conscious mind is 5%. Your subconscious mind is 95%. And by subconscious, it means it's below the surface, right? You're not typically aware of it until you're, unless you're in a group like we are right now, where you're building awareness around those habitual patterns. But your subconscious mind is the part of your mind that is in charge of your doing, of your behavior. And that serves you well. I'm sure most of you are like really good drivers, right? And that's because you've built the habit of being a good driver. So you probably stop at a red light, and that serves you well. But if you've got some habitual thoughts and beliefs going on that are around lack and limitation, say, right? So using the example that I gave on the goal setting, where I said, let's say that your goal is you want to raise $1 million. Well, it's one thing to say you want that at a conscious level. If at a subconscious level you don't believe it, that means that your subconscious mind is not supporting you in achieving that goal, because it literally runs you. All of us are run by a program. So what we're doing in our work here over the next 2 weeks is start to create new programming that supports you in the thoughts, beliefs, and actions that will help you achieve what it is that you want. Really, really good question.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And I think we're going to go ahead and end it here. If anyone has any last minute questions, you can go ahead and stay. But thank you so much, Stephanie, for this wonderful masterclass. And please, everyone, go see the link for her masterclass next week for part 2. It is in chat. And I will also be sending out an email with that as well. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you, Stephanie.